Welcome to me yapping about the new DLC announcement for Hearts of Iron 4. First of all, I was really hoping the USA would be part of the expansion, but they're not going to do that because when have they ever released two major content for nations in one DLC? Never. So that's fun. But I think after this, like, the Allies would be next. Like, USA, France, I know number of people want France as well to have like a new focus tree because it kind of sucks right now. Even some UK touch-ups would probably be pretty good, but reading through that devlog about special projects being passed up for this DLC, unless this naval rework is massive and lets us actually make custom things like the I-400 submarine carriers, heavy battleship carriers, like the Shinano, which was built on the Yamato hull, or even like things like escort carriers, which basically almost every major country had. Like Britain had a few. We obviously, the USA made the most. Japan had a few. Like, unless we're able to have these sorts of things in the game, I don't see why you wouldn't at least add like 2 more special projects or something, depending on what it is. Because, like, if you're doing a Navy rework and you don't put in any special projects, what's the deal with that? Especially because they said it came down to like the fact that they nerfed Breakthrough. You nerfed it like 2 patches after Götterdämmerung released. So, like, either revert it a little bit or make it scale with like the amount of time passed in game. I don't understand that. Now I guess I'm gonna basically go to like a wish list of what I want in the game. I want naval landings to be more of a commitment of industry and equipment if you want a success. Because, like, you've probably seen, if you've watched anybody else play HOI4, modded or otherwise, it's always like, oh, minus 50% at night, minus 99.9% for naval invading, and you don't have any supremacy. So, you know, kind of negating that a little bit, but also, you know, it should be an actual like resource commitment instead of just, oh, I'm drawing a line across the water. Because sure, floating harbors, which they added like 2-3 DLCs ago at this point, was good, like actual content, and it allows you to land anywhere, which is important, but you can still suffer the same naval invasion penalties. So I feel like part of the reason that naval invasions themselves aren't as fun is because it doesn't feel the same. Well, it feels the same as literally just drawing a line on the map saying move here. But now you're just doing it across water, and now there's an arbitrary, you need 50% naval supremacy. And so now you're just sitting there waiting for that special moment where you have like just above 50% for like an hour, so you can just do a attack on like Britain or something as Germany or whatever, and it just fails because you don't have a large enough navy and you lose. So if you made it more of a investment of industry for like landing, I feel like that would be good, and you could probably obviously give it like a higher success rate then, but it would really help, in my opinion, sell naval invasions as something instead of just a basic move check. Other things that I would really like to see reworked, carrier overstacking is stupid. If you have more than 4 carriers, it hurts your sortie efficiency by like 20%. And recently, like, some people saw, like, I think Yamato and stuff have like a plus 20% sortie efficiency, so it negates that. But, like, most fleets had 4 or 5 carriers up until like midway. I think like Japan had like 5. And so why not just at least make it like a bit more like 6, 7, 8. Like, overstacking at 5 is kind of ridiculous, but fleet death stacking as well, where you just throw all your boats into one large fleet, should be reworked, because that's the only way, frankly, to play the Navy. Because if you split everything up, then only parts of like a task force or whatever are going to go and engage. And that's not really fair. That's not really smart of like the AI, like orders and like how fleets move and stuff. That's not smart for them to do, but whatever. the biggest thing as well, kind of relating to naval, but not exactly specifically naval combat. Please, for the love of God, have industrial dockyard output get increased. And not like the actual output, because like the output and stuff allegedly scales with military factories, because it's like if you take concentrated or dispersed, it's the same amount. But I want like industrial cost of that, like the industrial cost, I think is what it's called, of like the output of dockyards to increase. Because by default that is 2.5, and it stays that way throughout the entire game. It never increases. So if you make a battleship or a carrier in like 1944 and it's like a 1940 carrier, even if you give it like the cheapest stuff, it'll take like almost a year, if not more, to just complete it, which is ridiculous because it makes the industry feel like it doesn't scale with things like heavy bombers or even like medium planes, anything that costs like a large amount of industrial capacity for military usage, whether they be ground, air, whatever. Like none of that stuff works fine. It scales with it, but the dockyards feel like they're always the exact same because they're not scaling properly with like the new technology and what you're doing with it. It's always going to be, it always feels like the same flat cost, which is just ridiculous. So I hope they address that or something, because I feel like that's part of the problem why people don't touch Navy and just say, oh, steal other fleets, navies and stuff. Because if it costs the same basically every time you try to build a fleet, why would you build one? Or it takes too long. So possibly revert the plane wing sizes from the 10, which is what they are now, back to 12, please. Because 12 made more sense. Most fleet air groups like fighters, naval bombers, stuff like that, they're usually in 12. So I understand they put that down to 10, but frankly, put it back because that's more accurate. And in terms of balancing as well, please give destroyers a higher level of sonar than 2. Why the hell did they... I remember when Gotterdammerung came out. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, but I remember when it came out and it was even revealed and stuff. I'm like, holy crap, they have nuclear submarines and stuff. That's so badass. Please, for the love of God, have destroyers be able to actually see them and kill them. But no. So with like Aniokic tiles, I'm probably butchering it, but trust me, I'm a little bit out of it. Like the tiles that reduce their visibility, the snorkels that reduce their invisibility, like nuclear-powered submarines that reduce their visibility. They're so, like, what? You can hit, like, 1% surface visibility? How are you ever going to spot that? It's a very simple explanation. Please buff and, like, make a higher tier of sonar. Because it is absolutely ridiculous that sonar gets capped at 1940, but submarines and snorkels only get introduced in 4044, and, like, submarines only get buffed and destroyers stay the same. It's so stupid. Please add more states to China and Japan, obviously. China certainly. Japan really needs it. They have like about the same as like Germany, and they're like twice their size. Like if you account for like all their cores and stuff. Some people have wanted like a balkanized like carving up of China, if you so wish and stuff, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, please add more states to China. Resources as well. For the love of God, why would you ever cap China except having it be a puppet to which you can steal their iron? There is no reason. And even then, that's just in like Guangxi. Like mainland China basically has nothing once you take the coast. You have to fix that. You just have to fix that. Resources especially, even more than states. And yeah, maybe air zones as well. Obviously, because you would be redoing states. So, consider that. But Japan could probably still be like 1 air zone. Maybe 2. Japan's focus tree as well, you need to be able to have them take the Yamato. It's so stupid that the first air fleet and Yamato are mutually exclusive when technically they had both. I don't give a damn if it's like a spirit at game start and then like maybe you lose carriers and it weakens the spirit, or you get more carriers but it like caps at like, I don't know, 25% or something. I'm trying to remember what the spirit is off the top of my head, but like maybe it starts with that and it only goes down and then like it goes away if you lose like X amount of carriers. You know, like something like that would be pretty good. I would think, because the Yamato is obvious, you need to include that, and having it be mutually exclusive with a damn carrier spirit is stupid, because then everybody just chooses the carrier spirit, which is what you do. But with like the new MIOs and stuff, they locked a specific MIO behind, you know, doing the Yamato, and like nobody would do that. So please make that not mutually exclusive, please. Bring back the Pearl Harbor buff, which was, I think, there before like Law Resistance was introduced. I think it gave like plus 35% or something. I don't know, because I've only ever played like with Law Resistance. But it gave you like 6 months or something of like high damage to port strikes. That's a good idea. Please bring that back. Maybe add a bit more to it or something. Like, just bring back the Pearl Harbor like buff, or at least make it visible, because technically it's still there, but it's like hidden and not shown in the national spirits when you do it. Just either fix it or keep it and buff it. Just do something to it to make it work. AI factions need to be redone. I think that it should really give more of a credence, especially for certain minor countries. They should be given more of a bigger impact on the war, specifically war score. I think it's ridiculous that the war score is basically entirely dependent on casualties, which makes you want to take, like, you know, as many casualties as possible for yourself and then the enemy, just to try and get your war score up. Please fix that, please. One person asked the question recently, is there any plans for eventually adding more collaborative abilities between the player and AI? It'd probably be difficult to set up, but, for example, joint operations, suggesting the AI produces and supplies you with something like aircraft, while you lend them small arms, which would allow the AI to concentrate their units and defend a certain area with their forces. Would you ever think about implementing something like that? And one of the staff members replied, one of the future dev corners might shine some light on our intended AI changes. If you put something like that in as well, that would be great. Licensing is another big thing. I think having the player be the only one who would ever give a damn about licensing out something like a Sherman or, you know, just any sort of tank or something is a little bit weird. I think the AI should also, instead of just buying resources, they should also consider buying licenses, depending on, like, specifically looking at the stats, like, oh, do they have a better plane than me? I'm going to ask them for their design, that sort of thing. It's very basic, but you could definitely implement something like that. One of the things they showed off for an upcoming diary is islands and oceans. I hope this makes the AI want to keep some garrisons on the island first, on like islands, specifically every island first of all. Because if you've ever played like the USA or whatever, and you're like running around the Pacific, the AI like never puts anything on like any island. They'll throw a bunch into like the Philippines, but then like, oh no, they might have like a few in like the Iwo Jima, Guam, Wake area. But otherwise it's like, unless you literally let them like sit there for like a year unattended, they're not going to put like any AI defense units anywhere, especially like places like the Solomon Islands and stuff, which is a shame. But again, if they fix it, that would be great. I really would love for an actual reason to naval like island hop like the US did, instead of just saying, oh, I'm gonna invade Wake, oh, and then that's it, like, or I'm gonna invade Iwo Jima and then like Taiwan or whatever, and that's it. Like, just take those two islands and then Okinawa and stuff, and then I don't need to do anything. You know, that you should have a reason to slowly naval invade compared to a large swath, I'm immediately jumping basically straight to your country sort of naval invasion. There should be an actual reason for that. So I really hope that is changed. Could have something to do with like dockyards and airports. because I don't know, maybe they'll come up with like a new supply for it, or like state modifiers and stuff, because obviously like there was never like large scale dockyards on like any of these islands and stuff, but technically you can do that right now in the game if you want, which is a bit, it's fine, it's a bit sandboxy, but that, you know, it could be better, it could be more fun and more interesting instead of it just being like, oh, it's actually just one tile port. So please somehow make islands more interesting. That would be absolutely great. Another thing they showed off is the new fuel. Nobody's really discussed this from what I've been able to read online. I mean, it only came out like 2 days ago, but the only comment I read about it was somebody going like, does that mean there's electricity in the game? I don't think there ever would be electricity in the game. I might be eating my own words here, but you know what? If I am, so be it. Because on one hand, electricity would be really good, because it might make you have to actually scale your industry appropriately instead of just military factory, you know, 25 in one state, whatever. And it would also provide a easy target for specifically like newer players who go like, oh, I want to build a strategic bomber. Strategic bombers still aren't like the best thing in the world, so if it gave strategic bombers more of a reason to exist, that would be good. Because strategic bombers is like you either build one or you build none or you build like 1,000. There's no in between. So it would be cool if they fixed that or made that more important, and it would also give credence to like dam rating and stuff more. Because like minus 15% resources for like, you know, X amount of days that the dam is damaged, that really wouldn't matter that much. But, you know, maybe if they added electricity, then all of a sudden it would become a higher priority target, because that's obviously going to produce a lot of electricity. So we'll see what they do with that. It might be electricity, it might not. Again, I don't really think it would be, but what else could it be? So that is what it is. Obvious criticisms with the AI. Please make it more reactive. There was a community manager that mentioned wanting more reactive AI, mainly for things like heart attack, as the AI doesn't build too many tank divisions. That would just be spectacular. Please just keep improving the AI. Like, it's still quite trash. Please just make it a little bit more dynamic to like what the player is doing. That is all I want. There's a new strategy section that they mention. The only two things I see with this is they did mention tweaking doctrines. I don't think it would come out this DLC, but it's probably just the Navy, but it could possibly be doctrines. It would be good to see them, even if they don't like completely rework doctrines or whatever, for them to tweak certain doctrines, Grand Assault and Deep Battle, because the other ones, Superior Firepower and Mobile Warfare, those are the only two that like anybody would ever take. Technically the meta is still like Superior Firepower, but if you really want speed, that Mobile Warfare is like the second best, and then all the other ones are just kind of trash. So please rework all those other doctrines. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it could just be the Navy systems, which, as I've already mentioned, specifically I would like to give more of an importance to naval invasions. I don't know what they could do with Navy, but I would love to have more freedom with it. Again, submarine carriers, the I-400 class, that was a real thing. Escort carriers, almost every major country had that. What are you doing? Put these in the game. They're very obvious. The Shinano, right? Like, give me the freedom to build the dumb shit, because that's what I really want to do, because I'm a naval freak. And it would be cool to see not submarines dominate the meta for once, but also, you know, submarine carriers maybe would be funny. So, yeah, I don't know. And in addition to the new strategies thing, real quick, I wonder if they wouldn't introduce a tactic. Like, I know they've been adding a few new, like, tactics. Specifically, like, Russia Masterful Blitz or whatever. When they complete, like, their army branch, that's a new tactic that they get specifically for them. I think Italy might have one. If not, I think Germany does. One of those things, like, for Japan, maybe about, like, their tunnel systems in, like, island hopping and stuff, that would be pretty cool. Because I would like to see them maybe touch on that a little bit. But, again, it could just be a state modifier or a national spirit. Could be anything. So, my conclusion is this. I'm really excited for this DLC. I'm a naval freak. I really like Japan, but I've hated their tree, so I haven't played them in, like, years. It just sucks because currently Japan was, like, so weak. You would finish the tree by, like, 44, 43 even. Like, there's no reason to ever try to get into a civil war with them because the civil wars just suck. And you can't even really do anything with it because then you have to naval invade Manchuria and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do with China, with Japan. You really needed to rework it. I'm glad to see them doing it. I hope this time next year, at this point, maybe we would have received another small expansion specifically for the Pacific, maybe touching on stuff they haven't done. This next DLC, it just comes down to, it looks really good, and I hope the next one after this one, for the love of God, give us a USA rework, and like an Allied rework overall. The Allies are now the weakest part of the game. It would be great to see that get bundled with like a diplomacy update, maybe like, I don't know, something like a League of Nations, which then turns into a UN, or like, you know, some sort of like narrative diplomacy elements would just really, really kick ass and bring the whole game to like feel more diplomatic at least a little bit. And again, like minor wars, starting World War III and stuff, fixing that stuff would be nice. More faction cohesion and like talk would be great. Again, that's kind of why I'm believing like after this one, you got to be doing like an Allies rework. Sure, they've never done like multiple major countries in one DLC, but come on, at least America. So we'll see what happens. But there's 3 things I want from this DLC in terms of Navy: I-400 submarine carriers, I-400 class, Shinano, or the broader assumption of me being able to take any battleship hull and make it a fucking carrier because it's funny, and like better sonar and possibly escort carriers. So, and escort carriers, that's specifically tech stuff that I want. And maybe again the naval landing shit. Yeah, I'm really excited, and I want the USA to get a rework because it's so bullshit that Germany gets +2 rubber. I didn't know Germany made the most amount of rubber in World War II. I'm fucking Googling it, and I'm seeing Germany, Lamau, as it pops up. Nope, it wasn't America. It was fucking Germany. They get the +2. Why do they get the +2? It's so stupid.